Hi, it's Jeff from I Teach Photographers. Thank you for downloading my ebook, 10 Steps to Become a Better Photographer. Let's just go through them quickly, those 10 steps, and we'll start with checklist number 1 is learn to control depth of field. Now, depth of field is controlled by 4 things, not just aperture, and that's really the key to this, is to understand the 4 things. Obviously, you can't do much about your sensor size, which is one of them. Then there's the aperture choice and your focal length and your focusing distance. But the 3, aperture choice, focal length, and focus distance, they can be chosen with every shot, and it really makes a huge difference how you choose those. So learning how those 4 work together and controlling depth of field in photography is a really huge step forward. Once you have good control over depth of field, you can get the picture looking exactly how you want. You might have some limitations with your equipment, but again, that will help you find those limitations pretty easily. All right, checklist number 2 is always remember your shutter speed. Now, this is because movement is critical in photography and we need to control movement. Now, there are 2 types of movement in photography. There's camera shake and there is subject movement. Now, camera shake is just movement recorded during the exposure, which we generally don't want. With subject movement, well, we might be trying to freeze the subject or we might be trying to allow movement in a subject. So shutter speed and movement is critical in every photo, and we really need to have our heads around what we're doing with our shutter speed and how that's going to affect movement in our shots. Checklist number 3 is about auto ISO. Now, if you shoot mostly manual, you're not going to use this, but in some of the semi-automatic modes, auto ISO is just a godsend. In aperture priority, it's amazing. In the last 5 years, it's become a really useful tool. So if you do use semi-automatic modes, and I think everyone uses them at certain times, the manual's great mode, but it's not suitable for every situation. When you're using aperture priority, for example, auto ISO is just a fantastic addition, and as it takes care of the movement issue for you. But read up on that one and you'll find out a bit more about that. Checklist 4 is about shooting RAW. Now, JPEGs are just images and RAW is the data from the sensor. Now, RAW just gives you the ability to process your images and essentially gives you more choices and better quality. So once you become a bit more serious about photography, you will probably shoot in RAW or RAW plus JPEG. Your cameras can generally do that. I consider it like essential. The RAW is the negative, and then you develop the picture from that. So you want to get the best data you can, and that's obviously the RAW format. I also shoot with DNG. I don't shoot in DNG, I convert to DNG. If you have a Pentax or a Leica, you might be able to shoot in DNG, but it's an open source RAW format by Adobe. But what I do is I shoot with Canon, so my CR2s, when they get imported into my computer, they get converted to DNG. So if you're interested in RAW files, check out the DNG format. It's a really good format. Checklist 5 is decide on your story before you shoot. Now, this is sort of about composition, but it informs composition. So it's about how an author knows the story before they start writing a book. A photographer should know what they're trying to say with their picture before they take it, because it will inform your choice of lens, your viewpoint, so many other things. So don't just put your camera up to your eye and take the picture. Think about what your subject is and think about what story you want to tell with that. And that will definitely help your composition in many, many ways. Checklist 6 is use exposure composition. Now, you can use spot metering and different types of metering, but for me, I think exposure compensation in any of the semi-automatic modes is the only tool you need to control your exposure. That biasing the metering from your camera, basically you're making the picture brighter or darker in increments of a stop, and it's a fantastic tool and salt and pepper for your exposures. Really, you really don't need anything else. In manual, obviously you're ignoring, there is no exposure compensation, the needle goes wherever you put it. So it's only for semi-automatic and automatic modes. Checklist 7 is buy good glass. Now, cameras come and go, but lenses last for years. Now, I've had 3 camera bodies over the life of my lenses, and the lenses are still going strong. So the point here is put your money into lenses, not so much rather than bodies, but put more of your money into lenses. Good photography is about good glass, and understanding that is a really good starting point. Checklist 8 is be very conscious of color. Photographers work with color most of the time, unless we're in black and white, and then we're working with tones, so be conscious of tone when you're working with black and white. But color is such a powerful part of the story, whether it's, if there's jarring colors, clashing colors, it's never going to look good. So really control the color palette. Learn to choose backgrounds that suit your subject in terms of separation and tone and texture, but also the colors in there. You know, blue and orange works well together. There's a lot of good color patterns, and there's just, I suppose, just be very conscious of color. You know, for instance, having red in the photo, your eye will be drawn straight to red. So just be really thinking about color all the time, and that will help your photography for sure. Checklist 9 is consider your backgrounds. Now, backgrounds are possibly one of the most important parts of a photo. I can show you many examples of photos where the background is like 80–90% importance in the picture, and people just do not put enough effort and consideration into what their background is going to be. So read up on that, maybe walk around your neighborhood, find some nice backgrounds, have it in a notepad. Depends what sort of things you're shooting, but backgrounds, particularly for portrait photographers, are absolutely critical. They're the story in the story. All right, checklist 10, work the subject. Now, with this is a simple concept that you never get the shot the first go, and sometimes you have to come back at a different time of day, or perhaps you need to use a different lens or find a different viewpoint. But the idea here is that when you just lift the camera up to your eye and take the photo, you're not necessarily going to get the photo you want. Digital's free. We can take photo after photo. We can come back. We can change lenses. We can just keep working that subject until we get what we want. Now, that obviously plays in with tip number 5. Is about knowing what you're trying to achieve with your story, and you will know then when the photo's right. If you're just hunting around looking for a good photo, this doesn't work. This is only for when you're consciously shaping the picture and you know what you're trying to achieve. Working the subject is a mental concept that will greatly enhance your photography if you apply it every time you shoot. All right, they're my 10 tips, and I hope you enjoy them. Come and check out my website and have a look at the courses I offer. I'm constantly offering new things, so I hope you enjoy that ebook and keep an eye out for the next one. All right, thanks very much. See ya.